When we look at a stereo system that doesn't sound as good as it should, speaker placement is almost always one of the first things that we check. In nearly all cases, the fix is completely free and only takes a little bit of effort. Like any stereo tweak, the goal is to simply do the best that you can within the limitations of your space. And for many of you, especially if your speakers were just plopped into place without much thought at all, a few small adjustments can really make a big difference in the sound quality. Now, if you want to dive deeper into speaker placement specifically, we have a full article and video that break down that topic in detail, which I'll link down below. But in this video, we're going to be focusing on the most common mistakes and how to avoid them. Let's dive in. Number 1, having your speakers right against a wall. We see so many rooms where the speakers are placed right against the back wall. Yes, this is usually what will look the best in a room, but unless your speakers are specifically designed to be against a wall, and very few of them actually are, you will probably hear a big improvement if you can just move them out a little bit. Usually they are pushed back against the wall behind them, but we have also seen speakers shoved against a side wall too. Now, unlike on-wall or in-wall speakers, which are designed to use the wall as part of the speaker itself, most speakers should usually be at least 12 inches or more away from a wall. The reason is that the wall will interact with the speaker and then reinforce the lower frequencies that will override and color the all-important mid-range part of the audio spectrum. So moving your speakers away from the rear or maybe even a sidewall will usually dramatically improve the clarity of voices and instruments on the music that you're listening to. Now, this is one simple step that should give you a new appreciation for those subtle details hiding in your favorite music that you've probably never even heard before. Number 2, having your speakers too close together. Unless you're listening to only mono recordings, it's important to have your speakers spread far enough apart to get a more enveloping stereo experience. Now let's say you're sitting about 10 feet away from your speakers, yet they're only 3 feet apart from each other. Now in that situation, you won't get a wide presentation of your music. Now when we're playing back recorded music, we're trying to recreate that live music experience, which usually fills the room from left to right. There are many so-called ideal ratios for the distance your speakers should be apart compared to how far you're sitting from them, but we actually feel that they should probably be at least in the 2-to-3 ratio, where if you sit 2 feet apart, you should be sitting 3 feet away from your speakers, and some people even prefer the 3-to-2 ratio, where they're spread a little bit even more far apart. Either way, the key is to experiment with placement until you find the very best setup that sounds the best to your ears. And again, I'll link down below our speaker placement guide if you want to check that out. Number 3, not having your speakers symmetrically placed in relation to your main listening spot. This one is more nuanced and not possible in some rooms, we understand, but it's still worth discussing. Many recording engineers spend a great deal of time working on the left to right balance of the presentation of the music. They will usually mix the main singer or instrument dead center between the left and right and spread the remaining musicians or vocalists out between the speakers. Experience this on a well set up system is something pretty special, but your ears and brain can only decode it all if you're sitting pretty close to the center point between your two speakers. Now, once you get your speakers out from the wall and spread the right distance apart, try putting your main chair at the very center spot in between them, and you'll hear what we mean about this. Number 4, having large objects between your speakers. All of that great left to right spread of the music will not be faithfully reproduced if you have a large piece of furniture that's blocking the sound path from your speakers. This is especially true if the piece of furniture is in front of the speakers. You're usually fine if you can position the front of your speakers about 6 to 8 inches or more in front of that furniture, but if they sit behind it, the furniture not only blocks the sound, but it also adds reflected sound, which can actually alter the mix the engineer worked so hard to get perfect. We realize you may not be able to change this in your home, but if you can, we recommend giving it a try. Number 5, having bookshelf speakers shoved into the back of a cabinet. Bookshelf speakers serve a nice purpose when you don't have a large space for a large floor standing speaker. Most are designed to work really well in a bookcase actually, but just a few inches can make a really big difference in the way that those bookshelf speakers sound and what you hear. We always recommend placing your bookshelf speakers right on the very front edge, or even better, maybe even have having them stick out an inch or so from the front of your cabinet. This will minimize the effect that the cabinet has on your speakers, giving you a much clearer and a much more open sound. Number 6, having your speakers on the same shelf as your turntable. Obviously, this one only applies to those of you with turntables and speakers on the same surface, but we see it all the time. We actually included this one in our top turntable mistakes, which I'll link that video down below too. Now, a turntable is a mechanical device just like a speaker. You don't want the vibrations from your speakers reaching your turntable, which are likely to happen if they're sitting on the same shelf, especially as you increase that volume. Now, if you can, separate your turntable and your speakers. If this isn't possible, there are both turntable and speaker isolation devices available that will help diminish the problem. I'll link a bunch of those down below. Number 7. The speaker wobble. When you put the flat bottom of a floor standing speaker on carpet, it will most likely wobble a little bit. A good push can even topple it right over. Several decades ago, speaker companies figured this out and came up with carpet spikes that fit into the bottom of your speakers that can punch through the carpet to touch the subfloor, which is a solid surface. Speakers produce sound by moving the speaker drivers, and you don't want any of that sound changed as it comes out. But if your speakers do wobble, the woofer movements can cause the entire speaker to move, which can actually really muddy the mid-range and the upper frequencies. So, if your speakers are wobbling on carpet, you should try to find the spikes that they came with and put them on. And you'll also get some bonus points in your sound if you spend a little extra time getting them actually leveled so there is zero rocking at all. Even speakers sitting on a hard surface will also benefit from fewer points of contact than the flat bottom, which is why most good tower speakers also come with some kind of spike made for hardwood or tile floors. It may even have a cup for a spike or a rubber cap on the end. But whatever you do, if your speakers come with these, put them on and adjust them so they don't rock at all and are perfectly level, and you're probably going to hear a pretty big improvement in the clarity. Number 8, the dreaded out of phase syndrome. Here's another free fix that we encounter more often than you would actually think. You want both of your left and right speakers pushing out the sound in sync with each other. However, if you wire them out of phase, one will be pushing while the other is pulling, which typically removes a significant amount of bass energy, and then it blurs all the other sounds. Now, the process is really simple to check. On your amplifier or your receiver, the wire connected to the red post should also be connected to the red post on the speaker. It sounds simple enough, but we see it all the time. That's going to take care of the positive connection when red goes to red, and then with the black to black, and you get the rest, that's going to make it correct. And while you're at it, you should confirm that the side labeled right is also headed out of the right speaker as you're sitting down, facing, looking at your speakers on your right side. Alright, so far all of these have been pretty much free with a little bit of effort. But we have to also mention one last thing that we can make a pretty big difference in your audio quality that we see just so many people ignore. This is the room itself that the speakers are placed in. If you've ever walked into a recording studio or seen photos of one, you've probably noticed that they put some effort into acoustic treatments. Now, we aren't saying that you need to make your room look like a recording studio. In fact, in most cases, you don't want all those treatments everywhere, as you want a little bit of liveliness to your room, but some simple acoustic treatments in many cases can make a bigger improvement than even upgrading to a better pair of speakers or some upgraded components. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details here, as we do have an article and video devoted on acoustic treatments that I highly recommend you check out. I'll link that video to room acoustics down below. Okay, I hope you've learned something in this video, and maybe if you are making a mistake, just a little bit of effort, you can go fix it and have some better sound out of your system. Now, we have more videos on mistakes with subwoofers and turntables and so much more. I'll link them all down below. And an A+ to all of you who had all of these fixed to begin with and you didn't even have to make any of the fixes. Now, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to our experts at audioadvice.com or stop by one of our award-winning showrooms. If you made any of these mistakes and you're able to fix them, leave a comment down below. Let me know which one you are making. And I hope this video is helpful, so please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on any of our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.